This is Lou Hapip. I'm grandmother to Alexis Reed, and I'm going to give you a few of the incidents as Alexis was growing up. And these are the incidents that I remember. When she was very little, she had in fact, she had her braces on. It was after she'd had her ankles operated, and she was living in the townhouse over on 10th Avenue East. And we went over to visit. When I say we, I mean my husband Walt and her grandfather and I. We went over and visited. And when we got there, oh, she and her mommy were having an argument like you could not believe. And I can't remember what the argument was about, but Alexis was so angry. And her mother said to her, "All right, Alexis, if you're not going to be a good girl, you can just go to your room." And her room was down 2 flights of stairs on the lower level. So here she comes, clunk, 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 in her braces. Down she goes, and she didn't go down because of her braces, she couldn't go down on her bottom. She went down flat on her tummy. So she slid all the way down on her tummy and then to the landing, and then all the way down. We could hear her going across the floor to her room. Clunk, 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 clunk. And I never said anything. I just sat there. And her mother said, "She's certainly been not a very good girl today." I told her, I can't remember if it was sweeping the floor or what. And she got so angry, and she wasn't going to do anything right. So anyway, this went on, and nobody said anything, and we all sat there and I was in the front room, and I think Walter, her grandfather, and Diana were in the kitchen, and pretty soon I heard her coming, clunk, 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 and up the stairs. I could hear her coming up the stairs because of her braces. And she stuck her head up above the stairway and looked around to see if anybody was near her, and nobody said a word. And pretty soon she came up, and she clunked on into the kitchen where Mom was. And her mother said, "Now, Alexis, are you going to be a good girl?" And Alexis said, "Yes, Mommy." And then we had the best time then, because, oh, she was such a good girl after that one. And the other incident that comes to mind was, this was after she was about 14 years old, and they were living in the home that they had. And Alexis, we came in, we were invited for dinner, and we came in, and oh my goodness, Alexis and her mother were going at it. Her mother said, "I want you to set that table like a nice girl." And Alexis said, "I'm not going to set that table." And her mother said, "Then go to your room." So Alexis went over to her room and slammed the door. And maybe 10, 15 minutes later, here she come out, just as nice as pie. She went up to her mother, and she says, "Mommy, I'm sorry." And Diana said to her, "All right, Alexis, are you going to set the table?" "Yes," Alexis said, "I'm going to set the table." And she said it just perfect, very good. But those 2 times I remember because she was in such a stit. She was so angry at herself and the world and her mom. But anyway, there was a lot of good times. We had lots and lots and lots of good times. I remember when she was just little, she'd probably be 4 or 5. Her grandfather, that'd be Walt, he would take her every morning, he would go and have coffee with the fellows at the drugstore. And Alexis always went with him. She'd clunk around behind him. And they'd sit down, and she'd order a donut, and sometimes a glass of milk, or sometimes